In Peru, authorities registered a dengue fever outbreak across the nation, overwhelming hospitals in the northern department of Peru. The Chinese government rejects recent criticism of its economic practices and described the bloc as an obstacle to international peace. The Russian government announced that its forces are in full control of the city of Artiomovsk after 224 days of fighting. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Peru, the capacity of hospitals in the northern department of Peru has been overwhelmed by the outbreak of dengue fever sweeping the country. According to Luisa Espinosa, coordinator of the Dengue Clinical Surveillance Unit, the LL2 Support Hospital is receiving more than 100 patients a day from the cities of Ayabaca, Talara, Paita, Piura, and Tumbes. Espinosa also reported that at least 10 doctors, about 10% of the staff, have been infected with dengue, which has strained the hospital's capacity to care for the population. In response to this situation, the Piura Regional Health Directorate has launched an intensive fumigation campaign to prevent the spread of the Aedes aegypti mosquito, which transmits diseases such as dengue, chikungunya, and Zika. In Peru, during the early hours of Friday, the Congress approved a draft legislative resolution that authorizes the entry of United States military troops into Peruvian territory. With 70 votes in favor, 33 against, and 4 abstentions, the full parliament passed the legislation allowing the entry from June 1st to December 31st. Alfredo Azurin was the legislator in charge of justifying the text, who pointed out that U.S. personnel will carry out cooperation and training activities with the armed forces and the national police. The resolution was condemned by left-wing benches. The vote took place 2 weeks after the Inter-American Human Rights Commission reported serious violations during protest repression against the Congress and President Dina Boluarte. A group of people demonstrated in front of the Archbishop's Palace in La Paz after a priest was arrested on the suspicion of abusing seminary students a decade ago. The demonstration follows a pedophilia scandal linked to now deceased Jesuit Spanish priest Alfonso Pedrajas. The dead priest left a personal diary where he confessed having abused some 85 Bolivian children during the 1970s and 1980s in Catholic boarding schools. This is in addition to the case of Milton Murillo, Catholic parish priest of St. Roque Church in the region of Tarija, who was sent to preventive prison for 3 months, accused of the same crimes. In response to the incident, the Bolivian government declared that it will create a truth commission to investigate the allegations of sexual abuse against children and will promote a law that will eliminate the prescription for this type of crimes.
We are asking for justice for all those cases of rape against our children. Me, as a mother, as a sister, as a daughter, I'm asking for justice for our children, nephews, nieces, grandchildren, cousins, justice.
Ecuadorian President Guillermo Lasso will present his annual State of the Nation report in a venue other than the National Assembly, entity he dissolved last Wednesday. The Presidency Communications Secretariat informed on Saturday that the President will deliver on Wednesday his State of the Nation report in a complex of public entities located in the south of Quito and known as Plataforma Social. The source dismissed rumors that the speech would be delivered at the Bicentennial Park in the north of the capital. The report to the nation will take place 2 years after Lasso took office as President of the country and on the date that marks the Battle of Pichincha in 1822, which sealed the Spanish colonial independence of the country. Lasso, who took office on May 24, 2021 for a 4-year term, dissolved Parliament last Wednesday and called for early elections next August when Ecuadorians will elect the President, Vice President and the 137 members of the National Assembly. The Dominican Republic increases to 24 the number of provinces on alert for heavy rains. The Emergency Operations Center reported that more provinces are added to the yellow alert, raising to 13, and to 11 the provinces in green due to possible flooding of rivers, streams, and creeks. According to the Emergency Operations Center, the storm will continue to have effects and recommended people not to cross rivers, streams, and creeks with high water levels and not to use bathing resorts or rivers in the provinces that are on alert. Meanwhile, the National Meteorological Office reported that rains will continue to affect a large area of the country during the weekend, causing thunderstorms and heavy rains nationwide. The Italian region of Emilia-Romagna continues to be on red alert following this week's floods, which have left 14 dead. The alert was issued by civil protection officials on Saturday morning in part of Emilia-Romagna, in particular on its Adriatic Sea coast and the provinces of Ravenna, Bologna, and Forlì-Cesena. In this regard, this meteorological agency reported that the rains will be widespread, but will continue with weak intensity. The authorities continue to assist the population and in the last few hours have focused on restoring public services. The overflowing of numerous rivers during the week caused the flooding of entire villages, leaving at least 14 dead, thousands of people displaced, and heavy. In Spain, the fire affecting the regions of Lourdes and Sierra de Gata in the province of Cáceres has burned over 10,000 hectares. According to the autonomous community authorities of Extremadura, this is the estimate gathered by the European state agency's Copernicus satellite. As reported, the wind is the main difficulty to extinguish the fire. At the moment, the firefighting operations continue, as well as the evacuation of residents from the area surrounding the fire, where 238 people have been evacuated so far. The fire started on Wednesday, May 17th in the area of Pino Fraqueado and is classified as level 2 of danger on a scale ranging from 0 to 3. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back from the South. The Chinese government rejects the statements of the G7 against its economic practices and described the bloc as an obstacle to international peace. A statement from the Chinese Foreign Ministry expressed its deep discontent and firm opposition to the defamations issued by G7 leaders in relation to the G7's criticism against the expansion in the Indo-Pacific and its claim of sovereignty over Taiwan. The Chinese government asked these leaders to stop interfering in the internal affairs of the Asian giant, qualifying all their statements as an attempt to smear and attack the country. Beijing further demanded the G7 to stop repressing other countries and abandon the path of confrontation and seek the path of global cooperation. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida received Saturday the leaders of the 8 nations which were invited to attend the G7 summit in Hiroshima. According to experts, the leaders of India, Brazil, Indonesia, the Cook Islands, Comoros, Vietnam, South Korea, and Australia had been invited to the G7 summit by the Japanese Prime Minister with the aim of bringing their leaders closer to the G7's position regarding global issues such as the Ukrainian conflict and China's role in the world economy. However, many of these nations, such as Brazil and India, have their own positions on these matters, which differ from that of the group. A Russian delegation will be in Delhi this November for the G20 summit, so few expect India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to make any sudden policy shifts. Indonesian President Joko Widodo held a bilateral meeting on Saturday with his Brazilian counterpart Luis Inácio da Silva on the sidelines of the G7 summit meeting. During the meeting, the pair vowed to work to improve relations between the two nations. Widodo and da Silva agreed to increase cooperation in livestock development and meat procurement, as well as in forestry sector and climate change. Greece heads for what is likely to be an inclusive parliamentary election on Sunday, paving the way for wrangling between parties to forge a ruling coalition in a deeply divided political landscape. Opinion polls show Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis' conservative New Democracy ahead of Alexis Tsipra's left-wing Syriza party, which ruled Greece in 2015-2019, at the peak of its debt crisis. A new voting system means an outright winner is unlikely unless the first party achieved more than about 46% of the vote, leaving the two main candidates in a scramble to find potential allies or the more probable outcome to lead the country into a second election in a month's time. Residents of Athens share their expectations and concern on the eve of parliamentary elections. Even though Greece has experienced a 5.9% growth last year, many Greeks are facing financial difficulties.
Life, especially for young people, is very difficult. A high level of unemployment, no work perspective, and they run out of money in the middle of the month.
Each young person hopes that the next day of the election, his choice will come into power with a strong KKE party candidate and will be able to put a break to unemployment, underpaid work, and the underfunding of education, which is very common in all schools and universities. I'm voting for Syriza, for a salary raise, debt reductions, for justice everywhere, for democracy in the country, because with its policies it serves the interest of many and not just a few people and the oligarchy. So the current government will fall, one that brought the destruction of the country, of these people, the working class and the youth.
In Germany, a stream of people headed to the polling stations in the crucial runoff race between President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. Polls for the Turkish presidential runoff elections opened for the millions of Turks living outside the country on Saturday. The second round of voting takes place domestically on May 28th, after neither President Recep Tayyip Erdogan nor his main challenger, opposition leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, secured the majority support needed for an outright victory in the first round last week. Some 3.4 million Turks abroad are eligible to vote and form part of the 64 million registered to vote in the Turkish elections. Erdogan's ruling Justice and Development Party and its nationalist allies won a comfortable parliamentary majority in the first round of voting on May 14th. The Russian government announced that its forces are in full control of the city of Artiomovsk after 224 days of fighting. According to the leader of the Russian private military group Wagner, the city was completely taken at noon local time. The founder of the military company thanked the fighters, the Russian people and President Vladimir Putin for their support during the military operation. The military group announced that it will withdraw its troops from Artiomovsk on May 25th after creating lines of defense and control positions which will be transferred to the Russian Defense Ministry, whose security agency stated that their control will enable the military to carry out new offensive actions and will weaken the defense of the Ukrainian armed forces. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov claimed that Russia entered into a phase of acute confrontation with the aggressive bloc composed by the United States, the European Union, and NATO. During a conference, the foreign minister affirmed that Western countries have openly committed themselves to the task of defeating Moscow on the battlefield and totally eliminated as a geopolitical contender. Lavrov also emphasized that the United States used the Ukrainian crisis to consolidate its position by making Ukraine fully submit to its will. In addition, the Russian foreign minister stated that a crack line has appeared between the collective West and the global majority of countries of the Deep South and East in view of an exponential increase in the conflict. teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat, Dial 461, and enjoy a Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break, and we'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back from the South. Hundreds of Australians took to the streets this Saturday to demand, among other things, the release of journalist Julian Assange and the withdrawal of the AUKUS military strategic alliance. Anti-government protesters gathered in Sydney and marched to Google's headquarters in Perth with placards and various demands. The protesters' main motive was to demand the release of Julian Assange and the withdrawal of the AUKUS military cooperation treaty. Demonstrators also called the government to stop any kind of cooperation with NATO. Police blocked the streets in Sydney's central business district due to the rallies and a number of protesters in the area. More than 140 Palestinians have been reported killed by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank and Gaza during the first half of 2023. According to the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs of the United Nations, the Israeli occupation forces have killed hundreds of Palestinians, including children. The international organization detailed that due to police operations and soldiers' raids in Nablus and Jenin's refugee camps, More than 200 Palestinians were injured and more than 50 students received medical treatment after being exposed to tear gas fired by Israeli forces. In this context, on Friday, according to local sources, Jewish settlers attacked the worshippers before attempting to enter the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Several Palestinian worshippers were injured after being attacked by a group of settlers near the mosque's Absbat gates. The clashes erupted in the area when Palestinians tried to confront the Israeli attack, and the Israeli police forces intervened to protect the settlers, firing tear gas bombs at the Palestinians. In Ethiopia, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has set up a shelter that has taken in around 400 displaced people from Sudan and Eritrea. To ease the pressure on the border, wooden and canvas tents have been set up about 6 kilometers from the port of Metema. These have been stocked with basic supplies to meet the needs of people in each tent. The World Food Programme, the World Health Organization, and many other international agencies have also been working around the clock to provide services to the arriving refugees. In this regard, the Sudanese refugees in these shelters expressed their appreciation for the resettlement efforts of the international agencies.
Got another choice. We have to live together, suffer together, share our stuff each other, because it is going to be a temporary situation, and we are hoping to to get a better life than this. I spent about 9 days, and they have just brought us here, and they told us nothing, and they support us by stuff, water, food, and they do their best in order to support us, and we are very.
In South Africa, LGBT activists have said they plan to return to their home country next week, even though they fear they could be arrested. Telovi Kwagala, who is a non-binary and prefers to use the pronoun they, has been living in Johannesburg in South Africa since 2021, but their visa is about to expire. Anyone who knowingly promotes homosexuality faces up to 20 years in jail under a new law passed by the Ugandan parliament earlier this month. The bill is awaiting approval by President Yoweri Museveni. It's an amended version of a previous draft that triggered an outcry from Western governments and rights groups. He stated that it feels like they know what they do want when they discuss the bill and what it does, because it feels like they are telling society indirectly to act on the fact that we are the immoralities of the community.
In this moment, anytime anyone who identifies as queer like myself, you have to fight for the rights to exist as yourself. But not only that, on my side, I am a photojournalist who can't publish or print any of my work because it is termed as aiding the promotion of homosexuality.
We have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.